Hello everyone, welcome back to the Virtual Realms YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ranger One, and we have finally made it back home in the White Shoals area encampment that I've called Dover. I wanted to take a few minutes before we move on in our exploration of the ARK Crystal Isles map to show you a couple of other areas that are immediately adjacent to where I built my base camp. There are a lot of interesting geographical features in the area that I think are worth noting, and they're close enough at hand to what I consider the ideal position for a base in this area that they're worth taking a quick look at before we leave. One of those areas is literally right below my main base camp. In a very shallow inland sea type of area teeming with life, there are these low tabletop shaped islands. Very rocky, very flat on top, great for building. They'd make a great spot for an outpost or even a main encampment, and they could be easily connected by bridges. I'm not going to spend a lot of time building on these. I'm just going to throw down a quick base of sorts there just to show you why I think that they would be a good place to get started on if you are interested in exploring the Crystal Isles map by sea. One thing you always have to remember, though, about Crystal Isles, there's a lot of leadsichthys. Did I pronounce that right? Leads. Let's just call them leads. The big whale-type fish that like to eat rafts. Well, not in this shallow oceanic area, but to either side of it, where the water gets deeper, they are quite common, so be aware of that. Again, one of the handiest things about these little islands is they're literally a stone's throw away from that escarpment in the background where my main base camp is situated. So it's kind of ideal. One thing that kind of ties into my using these adjacent areas in conjunction with my main base is the fact that, well, you guys that have watched for a while, you know I like to set up little caravan routes using the Dino Patrol mod, a series of waypoints where I can make the animals pause in certain spots or even go into wander in certain areas and then move on to a different area. If they're a dinosaur that can gather resources while they're wandering around automatically, the Dino Patrol system will allow those resources to be collected and sent to whatever waypoint I choose. It's just very handy. And I set up these routes, either land routes, sea routes, or air routes, case in point, wherever I go. Occasionally, things get a little odd. Like in this case, that Trough was set to land at the same waypoint as my Quetzal. And he ended up landing on top of the platform and pausing for 30 seconds there. So now that his timer has ticked over for 30 seconds, it triggers him to go back to the last waypoint and then continue on his chosen route. The Quetzal's on the same route right now. The differences in their flight speed will eventually separate them in midair, and they won't keep doing that. But for a little while, he's going to get a free ride every once in a while, and, well, that's okay with me. Hey, little guy. They're also set to protect each other, so if my Quetzal gets jumped eventually, well, that Trough would be in the area to assist and give him a hand in the fight. Well, this is an early test, just to make sure that the first few waypoints I put out made sense, you know, from a practical standpoint. And one of the mods that I'm running has the Quetzal actually go nose down when he's losing altitude. He doesn't stay level all the time. And I just wanted to see how that was going to work out, standing on the back of a platform. Because eventually I'll put a little house on the back of this, and I'll use this as an air taxi that I can just jump in and not even pay attention to, and it'll take me along the whole route. And below, you see one of my first constructions on these little islands. It's just a simple little landing pad that I've put down here for all of my aerial tames to land on as they go through this aerial route that I've set up. You can also see in the background there's a couple of wooden rope bridges. That's a separate mod. The wooden rope bridge mod is very handy, and the bridges can easily be thrown into place and take me from island to island. And they look cool too. Now here's an example of one type of, well, taxi, if you want to call it an air taxi, that I set up just as an experiment. This is done with a mod called Castles, Keeps, and Forts. The new science fiction mod that they've put out. They've got basically modern components that you can build bases and all sorts of things with. And I just wanted to see how well it would work. I'm going to use it here in just a moment elsewhere because it actually works out fairly well. It's a fairly flexible building mod, and I think it looks good. But this is the example of the sort of air taxi that I want to build on all my platform settles, whether they be Brontos on the ground or Quetzals in the air. It's just something I can jump on and hitch a ride wherever I want to go. And for these little island bases, it's kind of handy to constantly have this taxi service going on, so I don't have to run all the way down here. I can just jump on the Quetzal and hitch a ride. And it looks cool too, and I'm just kind of a big fat nerd, so there you go. So as I mentioned before, I've connected these 3 main islands and the 2 little ancillary ones that serve as, well, ship docking points, really. I've connected them all with the Wooden Hanging Bridges mod. I've made a little outpost with Eco's Empires, the Roman Empire mod that she has out. And if we come around this side of the rock, you can see them that I can't get through on this side of the rock. Let's go around on the other side of the rock. That'll probably work out a lot better. I used the tents that are in her Roman Empires mod to create this little outpost. Nothing too serious, just something that will allow me to hang out there and provide some shelter and provide beds and some building forges, stuff to build with, that sort of thing. And I wanted it to look like a nomadic little base, so that's exactly what we've got. But you could put castles on these islands. Nothing can get up here at you. They overhang the water. Even the occasional Spino that hangs around can't get up on top of these main islands. You're perfectly safe, especially if you put up a low wall, which there's a little wooden spike fence that comes with the Roman mod. You could do that too. And this is really close to where a lot of the wildlife in the area, the more dangerous and therefore more useful wildlife that you might want to tame, spawns right over there within rifle shot distance of this particular tabletop island. There's Sarcos and Capros and Baryonyx over there, and they spawn in great abundance. So it's kind of a nice area for that, because all of those creatures make excellent mounts in this kind of shallow sea and island biope that we have going on here. Oh, I almost forgot. There's a whole beaver colony that spawns over there too that the crocs like to prey on. And there's a matching one behind me on the other shore. So there's a lot of materials to be had quite easily here as well. I mentioned these little islands would make good little outposts if you like to explore by boat, and it all centers around the 2 sloped, low to the water islands that you just saw in the corner of the screen. There's one on either side, and I've run bridges down to them that are pretty much perfect for docking your boats at. Like I say, the water is shallow enough here that leads can't get in here to mess with your rafts or boats, but it's a perfect spot for you to build whatever you want, or heck, just pull them up on the beach and try to avoid ramming into the rocks, and you'll do fine. By the way, this boat is also part of the Roman Empires mod that Eco put out. You know, talking about Eco's mods, a friend of mine, a fellow YouTuber named Arali the Geek, just made a video a couple of days ago that showed something I was unaware of. She's just released another version of this mod that focuses on some fantastic Viking buildings. Multi-level, designed, I think, pretty specifically to go on very uneven terrain. It looks fantastic. And thank you, Arali, for bringing it to all of our attention that she just released this. It's actually helped me kind of make up my mind what direction I want to go in next. I had initially thought perhaps I would swing south on this map and look at the desert areas, but I think that Viking mod being released has inspired me to instead turn my attention northward and travel along the westernmost coast up into the colder realms up north and perhaps see if I can't find a good spot to mess around with that mod. Well, anyway, if you'd like to get a closer look at that new offering by Eco right now, head to O'Reilly's channel. I'll put a link in the description below, and he does a really good job of showing you the details of this beautiful new addition to Eco's Empires. Now, since this video has gone on a little longer than I originally intended anyway, I guess we better get to the last part that I wanted to cover. As is pretty obvious, there's yet another destination for my little air taxi there, heading out to the deeper waters just to the south. I wanted to try my hand using that Castles, Keeps, and Forts science fiction mod that I mentioned earlier. I wanted to see how it worked with Structures Plus, their underwater vacuum cubes that you can build with. Because, as I've detailed in other videos, you can substitute whatever mod you want for the walls in those vacuum cubes. And it works out really nice. You can get some nice effects. And I think the science fiction version of Castles, Keeps, and Forts would be ideal for that. And I'll let you be the judge of how it turned out. Now, on this particular trip out, I've come by boat because that works just as well. But all of my aerial teams that are following my Airbus route make regular stops here as well. So all I did was start with a Genesis ocean platform, and then take Structures Plus vacuum cubes and work my way down. And once I got the basic framework in place, I went through and took these Castles, Keeps, and Forts science fiction mod building pieces, doors, walls, etc. And I would remove, as you can easily do, remove the wall or ceiling or floor from the vacuum cube and replace it with one of these nice high-tech looking building pieces. If what I'm saying right now isn't making a lot of sense to you, I've got a mod out that says Building Underwater with Structures Plus. It's the most viewed video on the channel, and it shows you step by step how to build underwater using any building components that you want, as long as you've got the Structures Plus mod on your computer as well, because their vacuum cubes are set up in such a way as to allow you to swap out the sides and floors and ceilings and such rather easily. Now, really, you could make some pretty bizarre stuff with it if you really put your mind to it. But for right now, we're going with a high-tech look. It gives you excellent visibility into the outer ocean around you. I've got it set up to be multiple layers for living and workspaces, and there's even a quote-unquote docking platform underneath for your aquatic mounts that has automatic doors on that as well. The only thing I don't have in it at this point when I recorded this segment was I hadn't furnished the inside of it at that point. And while just having these glass walls is excellent if you want to observe the outside sea life, and a lot of that, again, remember, comes from different animal mods that I have added in that are listed in the description below. I've added to the wildlife of Crystal Isles with these mods. As interesting as that is, and it's really the only way to get a good look at how colorful some of these creatures are. I really did need some stuff on the inside too to make it seem a little bit more realistic, a little bit more like home. And since Eco's decor mods always make things much more homey and cozy, her Tek Decor mod seemed the perfect choice for this undersea base. See? Cozy. Oh, well, enough of this frivolity. Next episode, we're going to start our journey northward, exploring, I'm sure, lots of different areas along the way. So, I want to take a moment and thank you all for your kind support. And until I see you again, good hunting.